Yes, as conceived by European psychologists, mainly Sigmund Freud and Jung. We shall be delivering couple of lectures on this topic, on this concept of unconscious and the consciousness as well. But before I deliver formal lecture on unconscious as conceived by European psychologists in general and Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung in particular, let me quote three specific quotes from Sri Aurobindo. Three specific quotes from Sri Aurobindo. First, Sri Aurobindo says, we are not only what we know of ourselves. We are not only what we know of ourselves, but an immense more. We are immense more, which we do not know. So we are not only what we know of ourselves, but an immense more, which we do not know. Our momentary personality is only a bubble, on the ocean of our existence, কৈছে কি আমি নিজকে যি বুলি জানো, আমি মাত্ৰ সেয়াই নহয়, আমি তাতকৈ বহুত বেছি বৃহত্তৰ, but an immense more. আৰু যদি সঁচাকৈয়ে কোৱা হয়, আমাৰ এই যে ক্ষণিক সত্তা, মোমেন্টাৰী পাৰ্চনেলিটি, আমাৰ ক্ষণিক ব্যক্তিত্ব, এই ক্ষণিক ব্যক্তিত্ব আসলতে বিপুল সত্তাৰ সমুদ্ৰত এটা ৰঙীন বুৰবুৰণি মাত্ৰ। আমাৰ এই যিটো মোমেন্টাৰী পাৰ্চনেলিটি, আমাৰ যিটো ক্ষণিক সত্তা, আমাৰ যিটো ক্ষণিকৰ সত্তা যিটো, তাতকৈ we are much more than what we know of ourselves. তাৰ পিছৰটো হ'ল Sri Aurobindo কৈছে that our mind and ego are like the crown and doom. Crown মানে হল শিখৰ, doom মানে হল চূড়া, মন্দিৰ ইত্যাদিৰ ওপৰত থকা চূড়া। কৈছে our mind and ego are like the crown and doom of a temple, jutting out from the waves. Jutting out মানে ওলাই আহে, এই যে কাষৰ পৰা আগৰ ফালে অলপ মাত্ৰ ওলাই থাকে, অৰ্থাৎ শিখৰত যিটো দেখা পোৱা যায় অলপমান মাত্ৰ ওলাই থাকে। আমাৰ মাইণ্ড এণ্ড ইগো কৈছে our mind and ego are like the crown and dome of a temple jutting out from the waves, while the great body of the building is submerged under the surface of the waters. আমাৰ মন আৰু অহং, আমাৰ যেন অস্তিত্বৰ কল্লিত সমুদ্ৰৰ বুকুত জাগি আছে পৰ্বত শিখৰৰ দৰে। কল্লিত সমুদ্ৰৰ বুকুত, তৰংগায়িত সমুদ্ৰৰ বুকুত পৰ্বত শিখৰৰ মতে কি জাগি আছে? আমাৰ মন আৰু অহং। অথচ তাৰ সম্পূৰ্ণ শৰীৰ, কিন্তু পৰ্বতৰ বিশাল অৱয়ৱটো কি হৈ আছে? পৰ্বতৰ বিশাল অৱয়ৱ নিমজ্জিত হৈ আছে সমুদ্ৰৰ অতল গহনত। অৰ্থাৎ আমি ওপৰত এই মন আৰু অহংকেই আমি মানুহ বুলি ভাবিছো, কিন্তু তাৰ মানে পৰ্বত শিখৰৰ দৰে কেৱল মাত্ৰ ওলাই আছে মন আৰু অহং। আৰু গোটেই পৰ্বতখনৰ অৱয়ৱ কৈছে jutting out from the waves, while the great body of the building is submerged under the surface of the waters. And the last one, Sri Aurobindo কৈছে man is in himself a unique person. আমি স্বৰূপত অদ্বিতীয় পুৰুষ, এজনেই পুৰুষ, আমি এজনেই মাত্ৰ পুৰুষ। কৈছে man is in himself a unique person, but he is also in his manifestation of self a multi-person. We are unique person as well as we are multi-persons. আমি মাত্ৰ এটাই সত্তা নহয়। কৈছে মানুহ স্বৰূপত অদ্বিতীয় পুৰুষ হলেও এই যে আমাৰ অভিব্যক্তি, আমাৰ যিটো ইন ইজ মেনিফেষ্টেশ্যন, আমাৰ অভিব্যক্তিৰ বৈচিত্ৰ্যত আমি বহু পুৰুষ। আমাৰ ভিতৰত আমি অকল এজনেই মই নহয়, মোৰ ভিতৰত বহু মই আছে। আমি সেইবোৰ আমাৰ সাইকোলজিক্যাল পাৰ্টছবোৰৰ বিষয়ে আমি সময়ত আলোচনা কৰিম। এই তিনিটা মই বিশেষ উদ্দেশ্যত এই তিনিটা কোট মই ইয়াত কৰিছোঁ যে আমি নিজক যি বুলি ভাবো তাতকৈ আমি বহু ডাঙৰ। আমাৰ মন আৰু অহং কেৱল মানে পৰ্বত শিখৰৰ দৰে কেৱল মাত্ৰ ওলাই আছে, কিন্তু অথচ তাৰ শৰীৰ পৰ্বতখনৰ সমগ্ৰ অৱয়ব অটল সমুদ্ৰৰ গহনত নিমজ্জিত হৈ আছে। তাৰপিছত first let us discuss unconscious as a metaphysical concept and as evolved in Europe. As a metaphysical concept, Freud was not the discoverer, but as a metaphysical concept, the unconscious had been spoken of by several European thinkers about unconscious. Including the eminent philosophers. It is difficult to pronounce his name, Leibniz, Leibniz and Kant. We all know Kant, we have all heard about Kant. So about unconscious as a metaphysical concept had been spoken of by several European thinkers, including eminent philosophers like Kant. But the first elaborate metaphysical theory of the unconscious was developed by Edward von Hartmann. The first elaborate metaphysical theory of what? Theory of the unconscious was developed by Edward von Hartmann in 1869. And according to this theory of unconscious developed by Edward von Hartmann, what is this unconscious? According to this theory, this unconscious is an intelligent, purposive unconscious will, and what it does, it directs the universe. So there is, according to this theory, there is an unconscious will which is at the same time intelligent, purposive, which is directing this universe, according to the elaborate metaphysical theory of the unconscious as developed by Edward von Hartmann. But however, as a psychological construct, it was this is about metaphysical, as a metaphysical concept. This is the history of unconscious as a concept. But as a psychological construct for what? Psychological construct used for understanding of human behavior. As a psychological construct for understanding the human behavior, the concept of the unconscious is associated with two of the foremost personality theorists. And who are they? One is Sigmund Freud and the another one is Carl Jung. So as a psychological construct, unconscious as a psychological construct used for understanding the human behavior is associated with personality theorist Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. So this is the early comment. This is an early comment on unconscious. So what are the salient points I have discussed? That as a metaphysical concept, it was spoken of by several. Number one, not only Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. And first metaphysical theory was developed by Edward von Hartmann in 1869 about unconscious as a metaphysical concept. And what is this unconscious? What is this? According to this metaphysical concept of unconscious as developed by as developed by Edward von Hartmann, it is an intelligent, it is to be noted that it is an intelligent, purposive, unconscious will which is directing the universe, which is directing the universe. But as a psychological construct, as a psychological construct for understanding human behavior, this concept is associated with Freud and Jung. This concept is associated with Freud and Jung. Then, what does Freud say about this unconscious? Freud, who announced his discovery of the unconscious in 1885 only. Metaphysically, it was first developed in 1869, but is a psychological construct for understanding the human behavior, was announced by Sigmund Freud only in 1885. In 1885. And this theory, as announced by Freud, described unconscious as a domain of the mind. So we have to understand unconscious as announced by Sigmund Freud as a domain of what? Domain of the mind. So unconscious is a domain of the mind. And what does it contain? What does it contain? This unconscious contains all our desires, feelings, memories, and images which have been repressed. So this repression is to be noted. Not all our desires, not all our feelings, not all our memories, not all our images, but only those desires, only those feelings, those memories, those images which have been repressed. And what is the meaning of repression? I shall be sharing today four link with you. One is about on four different interrelated concepts, and one of these repression is one of those concepts. So I shall be sharing a link with you. But then, what is unconscious? First, it is a domain of the mind, number one. Number second, what does it contain? The unconscious contains desires, feelings, memories, and images which have been repressed. So, which are not repressed? Unconscious does not contain those desires, those feelings, those memories, those images which have not been repressed. It contains only those which have been repressed. যিবোৰ দমন কৰা হৈছে, repressed কৰা হৈছে. Why it has been repressed? Because they are too anxiety provoking. To be admitted into consciousness. It cannot be admitted into consciousness. And that is why those desires, those feelings, memories, images have been repressed. And they are thrown into the depths of unconscious. So though these repressed contents of the unconscious are not accessible to conscious awareness, so these repressed desires, repressed feelings, repressed memories, repressed images, they are not accessible to our conscious awareness. They are not accessible to our conscious awareness. Amar jitu seton jitu mon, seton mone eiburer bikhoye najane. But yet, they play a powerful dynamic role. In human behavior. ইয়াৰ কোনো যোগাযোগ নাই, আমাৰ চেতন বাহ্য চেতনাৰ সৈতে ইয়াৰ কোনো যোগাযোগ নাই, অথচ এইবোৰে this unconscious play a powerful dynamic role in human behavior. আৰু বিশেষভাৱে কৈছে এটা কৈছে especially in its psychopathological or abnormal manifestations. So in all our mental disorders, this unconsciousness plays an important, a powerful role, rather powerful dynamic role, not inactive role, but powerful dynamic role. So then Freud used one metaphor. And what is that metaphor? The metaphor is iceberg. Iceberg মানে হিমবাহ, সাগৰৰ ওপৰত তাৰ অলপমান মাত্ৰ ওলাই থাকে। মই ইয়াত আগত যে এটা শ্ৰী অৰবিন্দৰ লাইফ ডিভাইনৰ পৰা কৈছিলো কি যে আমাৰ মন আৰু অহং কি যেন অস্তিত্বৰ কল্লোলিত সমুদ্ৰৰ বুকুত জাগি আছে পৰ্বত শিখৰৰ দৰে, অথচ পৰ্বতখনৰ সমগ্ৰ অৱয়ব সমুদ্ৰৰ অতল গহনত নিমজ্জিত হৈ আছে। ঠিক সেই ধৰণে আইচবাৰ্গৰ লগত তুলনা কৰিছে হিমবাহৰ লগত কাক? আমাৰ মনটোক। কিয় কৈছে আইচবাৰ্গৰ যেনেকে 10% পানীৰ তলত নিমজ্জিত হৈ থাকে, তেনেকে আমাৰ মনৰ যিটো আনকনচিয়াছ, এইটো 10/9 আৰু এই 10/9টো পানীত নিমজ্জিত হৈ থাকে। কৈছে টু এক্সপ্ৰেছ দি এনৰ্মিটি, it is a কিমান বিশাল আনকনচিয়াছটো 10/9। কৈছে to express the enormity of the unconscious as compared to the conscious mind. It is enormous than that of our conscious mind. Freud used the well-known metaphor which depicts the mind as an iceberg. And 19th of an iceberg lie hidden beneath the surface of the waters. Beneath the surface of the water. Lie hidden beneath the surface of the waters. 19th. So this 19th is called unconscious by Freud. Then another psychologist called William James hailed this discovery in 1901 as the most important step forward. This discovery of unconscious is the most important step forward that has occurred in psychology since I have been a student of that science, says William James, one of the eminent psychologists of 20th century. He says, let me quote, the most important step forward that has occurred in psychology since I have been a student of that science. What is that most important step forward? The discovery of unconscious. As a psychological construct for understanding the human behavior. Then, though the influence of Freud's theory of the human personality has considerably waned since its heyday, তাৰ যিটো সমুজ্জ্বল দিন আছিল, এই সমুজ্জ্বল দিনৰ পৰা তাৰ গুৰুত্ব, এই আনকনচিয়াছৰ গুৰুত্ব বহু পৰিমাণে হ্ৰাস পাইছে। কৈছে, though the influence of Freud's theory of the human personality has considerably waned since its heyday, his concept of unconscious still continues to permeate psychological thought to a wide extent. Permeate, this is P-E-R-M-E-A-T-E, permeate. ই কিন্তু এতিয়াও মনস্তাত্ত্বিক চিন্তাৰ মাজত বহু পৰিমাণে এতিয়াও ই প্ৰৱেশ লাভ কৰে। His concept of the unconscious still continues to permeate psychological thought to a wide extent. Another psychologist of our own times, John Wellwood, about whom we discussed yesterday, John Wellwood observes, let me quote, he says, let me quote, the unconscious is perhaps the most powerful concept in all of modern psychology. In all of modern psychology, this unconscious, the significance of a broad range of human behavior, an experience that had been difficult to explain before Freud, which is unconscious, এই তত্ত্বটো আবিষ্কার হওয়ার আগলৈকে, which it was difficult to explain. It was difficult to explain human behavior and experience. It was difficult before Freud. So the significance of a broad range of human behavior, an experience that had been difficult to explain before Freud. And what are those broad human behavior, such as dreams, neurotic symptoms, symbolic visions, selective forgetting, slips of the tongue, slips of the tongue is now widely recognized thanks to the explanatory power of the concept of the unconscious. গতিকে আপোনালোকে অন্তত হৃদয়ঙ্গম কৰিব পাৰিছে, unconscious as a powerful psychological concept, is dominating Western psychological world. আৰু সেইভাবে আমি unconscious আৰু ইয়াৰ protagonist, ইয়াৰ votaris কোন, কার্ল জুং and Sigmund Freud. আমি দুজনৰে unconsciousৰ concept আলোচনা কৰিম, তাৰ পিছত consciousness from the perspective of Sri Aurobindo will be discussed. So then, what are the salient points we have discussed so far? That Freud announced his discovery of the unconscious when? In 1885, number one. Number two, what is unconscious? Unconscious is a domain. Domain of what? Domain of the mind. What does it contain? What does unconscious contain? It contains repressed desires. It contains repressed desires, feelings, memories, and images. And these repressed desires, feelings, memories, and images are not accessible to conscious awareness. অর্থাৎ আমার যেটো চেতন, যেটো আমার জাগ্রত অবস্থা আছে, চেতন জাগ্রত অবস্থায় এই আমি যিবিলাকক দমন কৰিছিলো, according to Freud, আমি আমাৰ দ্বাৰা দমিত অবদমিত যিবোৰ desires, feelings, memories, images, এইবোৰৰ কোনো এক্সেস নাই, কোনো যোগাযোগ নাই আমাৰ বাহ্য চেতনাৰ সৈতে, যোগাযোগ নাই. They are not accessible to conscious awareness, yet they play a powerful dynamic role. In human behavior. And the unconscious is enormous, almost 9/10 of the mind is enormous as compared to the conscious mind. And what is the proportion? 9/10 is unconscious, like an iceberg. Freud therefore depicts the mind as iceberg. সেইভাবে কার লগত তুলনা কৰিছে? আইসবার্গৰ লগত, হিমবাহৰ লগত. 9/10 of which, that is to say the unconscious. So 9/10 of which mean 9/10 of, that is to say the unconscious, lie hidden beneath the surface of the waters. And according to William James, this discovery is the most important step forward, according to William James, one of the 20th century psychologists. He has used the word, the most important step forward. So you have perhaps guessed what position this concept of unconscious is occupying in Western psychological world. And despite it is being warned, তাৰ গুৰুত্ব কমিছে, হ্ৰাস পাইছে, ক্ষয় হৈছে, but still the concept of unconscious still continue to permeate psychological thought to a wide extent. এতিয়াও আমাৰ মনস্তাত্ত্বিক চিন্তাৰ মাজত এই unconscious এতিয়াও প্ৰৱেশ লাভ কৰি থাকে. And to what extent? To wide extent বুলি কৈছে, to wide extent. And according to John Wellwood, another psychologist of our times, it is the most powerful concept. While William James says it is the most important step forward, Wellwood says it is the most powerful concept. One says about its importance, one says about its powerfulness. So it is the most powerful concept in all of modern psychology, But the desires, feelings, though Western psychology conceives of all these things belonging to the domain of the mind. But India thinks it differently. India's discovery is totally different. India says our outer being is composed of three components, not only mind and body, not only composed by mon aru shorir, not only composed of mind and body, it is also composed of prana, vital. শৰীৰ প্ৰাণ মন, আমি তিনিটাৰ কথা কওঁ ভাৰতীয়সকলে, শৰীৰ মন প্ৰাণ, কিন্তু ৱেষ্টাৰ্ণ সাইকোলজিষ্টে সকলো বস্তুকে মনৰ ভিতৰত ধৰিছে, অন্তৰ্ভুক্ত কৰিছে, কিন্তু ভাৰতীয় মনস্তাত্ত্বিকে এই যিবোৰ কৈছে আমাৰ পেশন, যিবোৰ আমাৰ ডিজায়াৰ, আমাৰ ইনষ্টিংস, এইবোৰ these are all part of our vital components. Vital components means pran. Or এই ক্ষেত্ৰতে মই শ্ৰী অৰবিন্দই vital means pran. Shorir means body, pran means vital, and mon means mind. So what about prana? মই অলপ তিনিটা সৰু শ্ৰী অৰবিন্দৰ কোট মই আপোনালোকক কৈ দিছো, কৈছে the vital is the life nature made up of desires, sensations, feelings, passions, energies of action, will of desire, reaction of the desire soul in man. So they are not part of our mind. But according to European psychology, they are part of unconscious mind. But according to India, they are part of our prana. And all that play of possessive and other related instincts. These are all part of our prana, or part of vital, belonging to vital. And all that play of possessive and other related instincts, anger, fear, greed, lust, etc. So on one hand, our desires, our sensations, our feelings, our passions, energies of action, will of desire, reactions of the desire soul in man on one hand, and on other hand, all that play of possessive and other related instincts. That is to say, our anger, fear, greed, lust, etc. With all these, this prana is made up of. So these are part of our prana, not of they do not belong to mind. But according to Western psychology, they belong to unconscious domain of the mind. Then Sri Aurobindo says the vital as the desire soul and desire nature controls the consciousness to a large extent in most men. It's almost similar, because Freud also says that that they are not accessible to conscious awareness, yet they play a powerful dynamic role in human behavior. But the difference is Western psychology says they belong to our unconscious domain of mind. But India says no, they belong to our prana. They belong to our prana, that is to say, vital. And why they control the consciousness to a large extent in most men? Because most men are governed by desire only. So the prana controls us to a great extent, not mind. Prana controls us because desire controls our life. Then another quote on vital: we shall be taking up this vital in a more comprehensive manner, in due course. Sri Aurobindo says it means prana. It means the vital. Vital means prana. It is the life force and desire force in a man. So it has been again defined in a different way. So what is prana? Prana is the life force as well as desire force in man. And the part of being that responds to desire, and is the instrument of the life forces, So prana is the instrument of life forces. This prana responds to our desire, and this prana is life force as well as desire force in man. Life force as well as instrument of life force. Pran shakti aru amar kamonar utsa, kamona, bakona, lobh, moh, kam, krodh, ami jibur kong ibur. So monor function beleg, monor kam beleg, ami jetia alochona korim ami janim. Kintu Western psychology koise they belong to unconscious domain of the mind, because they know nothing about this prana ranks, prana components. So then let us discuss again the Freud's view of the unconscious. So first, Freud arrived at the twin concept of the unconscious and repression. So another thing to be noted. So two concepts. One concept of unconscious, one thing, and the other thing is concept of repression. Both are important in Freud's theory. So how Freud arrived at his theory, how he has discovered. In case of Sri Aurobindo, it is his own experience and exploration. In case of Sigmund Freud, Freud arrived at, as a result of his early experience, in treating patients, with the cathartic method. Cathartic is a Greek word, cathartic, C-A-T-H-A-R-T-I-C. I shall be sharing one link with you on this cathartic method, and another link on repression. So as a result of his early experience in treating patients with the cathartic method, and what does it mean in psychology? Very briefly and to be very specific, cathartic method, that is to say, consisting in the revival of painful repressed memories while in a state of hypnosis. So it is a method, cathartic method is a method for revival of painful repressed memories. Through this method, all those repressed desires, repressed memories are revived. And the method is called cathartic method. So as a result of his early experience in treating patients with the cathartic method, but this method is applied only in a state of hypnosis. What is hypnosis? We shall be explaining. যেটো আমি সন্মোহন কৰা বুলি কওঁ hypnosis. So first let us understand what is cathartic method. Consisting in the revival of the painful repressed memories while in a state of hypnosis, which his older colleague Joseph Brewer had been using successfully with hysterical patients. অর্থাৎ তেওঁৰ এজন সহকৰ্মীয়ে ইতিমধ্যে এই cathartic মেথডটো যিসকলৰ হিষ্টেৰিকেল ডিজিজ আছিল, হিষ্টেৰিকেল মানে কি আমি কম প্ৰথমতে জানি লওঁ যে হিষ্টেৰিকেল যিবোৰ পেচেণ্ট সেইবোৰৰ ক্ষেত্ৰত তেওঁ এই cathartic মেথডটো অলৰেডি এপ্লাই কৰি আছিল। আৰু হোৱাট ইজ cathartic ৱে? যিবোৰ এই যে আমি যিবোৰ অবদমিত যিবোৰ আমাৰ স্মৃতি মেমৰিজ, অবদমিত যিবোৰ স্মৃতি এইবোৰক ৰিভাইভ কৰা হয়। ইট ইজ এ মেথড, ৰিভাইভ। So if we are asked how Sigmund Freud arrived at the twin concept of the unconscious and repression, then we have to answer that Freud arrived at as a result of his early experience in treating patients with the cathartic method. And what is cathartic method? Consisting in the revival of painful repressed memories while in a state of hypnosis. যদি এই hypnosis state যদি নাথাকে তেতিয়া cathartic method cannot be applied. আৰু এই মেথডটো ফ্ৰয়েডৰ সহকৰ্মী his older colleague, senior colleague Joseph Brewer, B-R-E-U-E-R, Brewer had been using successfully with historical patients. গতিকে ইয়াত আমি 3-4টা কথা জানিলো। এটা, সিগমুণ্ড ফ্ৰয়েডে কেনেকৈ এৰাইভ কৰিছিল। দ্বিতীয়তে তেওঁৰ কনসেপ্ট, কিন্তু দুটা কনসেপ্ট আমি সদায় মন কৰিব লাগিব, কনসেপ্ট অফ আনকনসিয়াস এজ ৱেল এজ কনসেপ্ট অফ ৰিপ্ৰেছন। কেনেকৈ জানিছিল? পেচেণ্টৰ ওপৰত তেওঁ যেতিয়া cathartic মেথডটো এপ্লাই কৰিছিল। And what is cathartic method? It is consisting in the revival of painful repressed memories while in a state of hypnosis. আৰু ফ্ৰয়েডে কি অবজাৰ্ভ কৰিছিল? It is very interesting. Because Freud observed that among the painful forgotten memories, তেনেকুৱা আমি পাহৰি যোৱা, একেবাৰে স্থায়ীভাৱে পাহৰি যোৱা মেমৰিজ বহু থাকে। কৈছে among the painful forgotten memories, those of unacceptable wishes were predominant. কৈছে যিবোৰ আমি ৰিপ্ৰেছ কৰিছিলোঁ, যেতিয়া ৰিভাইভেলৰ জৰিয়তে থ্ৰু cathartic মেথড সেইবোৰক ৰিভাইভ কৰে, তেতিয়া ফ্ৰয়েডে কি অবজাৰ্ভ কৰিছিল? কৈছে যিবোৰ আনএক্সেপ্টেবল উইচেছ, অৰ্থাৎ যিবোৰ আমাৰ একেবাৰে যিবোৰ পীড়াদায়ক যন্ত্ৰণা আছিলে, আৰু কৈছে আনএক্সেপ্টেবল উইচেছ, সেইবোৰ প্ৰিডমিনেণ্ট বুলি কৈছে। কৈছে Freud observed that among the painful forgotten memories, those of unacceptable wishes were predominant. And he attributed such forgetting to the process of repression. So what is repression? I shall be sharing the link. So repression is a process by which we forget our repressed memories. So Freud observed that among the painful forgotten memories, those of unacceptable wishes were predominant. যিবোৰ আমি unacceptable wishes, আপোনালোকে নিজে ধাৰণা কৰি লওক, যিবোৰ আমি বাসনা unacceptable আছিল, গতিকে সেইবোৰ প্ৰিডমিনেণ্ট বুলি কৈছে। যেতিয়া ৰিভাইভ কৰিছিল cathartic মেথডৰ জৰিয়তে, তেতিয়া ফ্ৰয়েডে অবজাৰ্ভ কৰিছিল তেওঁ কোৱা কথা। আৰু তেওঁ এই ফৰগেটিং যিটো প্ৰচেছ, কৈছে he attributed such forgetting to the process of repression by which, according to him, the painful memories are pushed into the depths of the unconscious. So if you were asked, what is repression? Repression is a process by which what is done, by which the painful memories are pushed into the depths of the unconscious. গতিকে দমন এটা হল প্ৰক্ৰিয়া যিটোৰ দ্বাৰা আমি এই পেইনফুল মেমৰিবিলাকক ক'ত নিক্ষেপ কৰোঁ, একেবাৰে আনকনচিয়াছৰ গভীৰত নিক্ষেপ কৰোঁ। আৰু এই যিটো ফৰগেটিং প্ৰচেছটোকে ৰিপ্ৰেছন বুলি কৈছে। কিন্তু ইয়াৰ পিছত ফ্ৰয়েডে কিন্তু আৰু এটা সাংঘাতিক কথা কৈছে। আমিতো সাধাৰণ অৱস্থাটো বহুত কথা পাহৰোঁ, কিন্তু সেইবোৰ কিন্তু আনকনচিয়াছত নাযায় বুলি কৈছে। Those forgetting are not thrown into the depths of unconscious. যিবোৰ ordinary forgetting. Why? কৈছে such forgetting through repression is distinguished from ordinary forgetting. So এটা হল forgetting through repression আৰু এটা হল ordinary forgetting. কৈছে the former makes the forgotten material inaccessible to the conscious mind. কৈছে ৰিপ্ৰেছনৰ জৰিয়তে যিটো আমি পাহৰি যাওঁ, তাৰ পৰিণতি স্বৰূপে কি হয়, আমাৰ বাহ্য চেতনাৰ সৈতে এই ৰিপ্ৰেছড মেমৰিবোৰে যোগাযোগ হেৰুৱাই পেলায়। কৈছে the former makes the forgotten memorial inaccessible to the conscious mind, whereas things which are forgotten ordinarily can be recalled as they lie in abeyance. কেৱল স্থগিত হৈ থাকে বুলি কৈছে। আমি যে কেপ্টেইন এই abeyance বুলি কওঁ কেতিয়াবা অৰ্ডাৰ, ঠিক তেনেকে যিবোৰ অৰ্ডিনাৰী ফৰগেটিং কৈছে can be recalled as they lie in abeyance in what Freud called the pre-conscious layer of the mind. তাৰ মানে আমি তেনেহলে ফ্ৰয়েডে কেইটাৰ বিষয়ে ক'লে? এটা আনকনচিয়াছৰ বিষয়ে ক'লে, এটা কনচিয়াছ লেয়াৰৰ কথা ক'লে, though it is a very small part, 1/10, 9/10 is unconscious. Now he has spoken about another layer, which is pre-conscious layer. So it is the first part of his theory, which is known as topographical theory. And what is topographical theory? By which Freud divides mind into 3 layers. So his concept is 2. One is unconscious and the repression. Theory of repression and the theory of unconscious. And what is his topographical theory? By topographical theory, he divides mind into 3 layers, namely the conscious, the pre-conscious, and the unconscious. So these are another important things associated with Freud's unconscious and his topographical theory and the theory of repression. So what are those important points? The first, Freud's concept is twin concept. And what are those twin concepts? One is the concept of unconscious, and the other one is concept of repression. So this is first thing. Second, how Freud arrived at these concepts? Answer is Freud arrived at these concepts as a result of his early experience. Early experience in what? Early experience in treating patients with the cathartic method. This method had already been applied successfully by his senior colleague, Joseph Breuer, successfully with hysterical patients. And what is this cathartic method? Consisting in the revival of painful repressed memories while in a state of hypnosis. So it is a process of revival, process to revive. So cathartic method is a method to revive our repressed painful memories, but while in a state of hypnosis. And according to Freud, unacceptable wishes were predominant among the painful forgotten memories. Unacceptable wishes. And what could be our unacceptable wishes? You can better guess. So according to Freud, unacceptable wishes were predominant among the painful forgotten memories. Then another important point, Freud attributes this forgetting to the process of repression. Because of repression, we forget. So Freud attributes such forgetting to the process of repression. And what repression does? Through repression of our desires, memories, etc., the painful memories are pushed. Kot push kora hoy, pushed into the depths of the unconscious. So, but then Freud speaks about two kind of forgettings. One is ordinary forgetting, and one is forgetting through repression. So forgetting through repression is inaccessible to the conscious mind, while things which are forgotten ordinarily can be recalled once again. From where? From the pre-conscious layer of the mind, where they lie in abeyance. That sthogito hoi thake, that sthita thake. It can be recalled again. গতিকে ইয়াৰ পিছত আমি কি দেখা পালো? So Freud's topographical theory does divided the mind into three specific layers. And what are those three specific layers? The conscious, the preconscious, and the unconscious. The conscious, the preconscious, and the unconscious. So what is then hypnosis? What is hypnosis? Hypnosis, the induction of a state of consciousness, in which a person apparently loses the power of voluntary action and is highly responsive to suggestion or direction. অর্থাৎ hypnosis আমি যেটো সন্মোহন কৰা বুলি কওঁ, মোহনিদ্ৰা বুলি কওঁ অসমীয়া, তাত কি কৰা হয়? এনেকুৱা এটা চেতনাৰ অৱস্থা য'ত মই নিজে ইচ্ছা কৰি কিবা এটা কৰাৰ যিটো শক্তি সেইটো মই হেৰুৱাই পেলাওঁ. কি কৈছে? In which a person apparently loses the power of voluntary action. তাৰ পৰিৱৰ্তে কি কৰোঁ? We become responsive. Responsive to what? Responsive to suggestion or direction. কোনোবা এজনে আমাক direction দিব, আৰু আমি সেই direction মতে পুতলাৰ দৰে আমি respond কৰোঁ. This is what is called hypnosis. And in this state of hypnosis, all our repressed memories are revived through cathartic method. So its use in therapy typically to recover suppressed memories. Its use in therapy typically to recover suppressed memories or to allow modification of behavior has been revived. It has been revived again, but is still a controversial method. Hypnosis is not a very it's a very sound method. It is still, though it has been revived, it's a controversial method. And what is hysterical patient? Hysterical means affected or deriving from widely uncontrolled emotion. অর্থাৎ যিবোৰ মানুহ অতি বেছি আবেগপ্ৰবণ, এই অতি বেছি আবেগপ্ৰবণতাৰ ফলত যিবোৰ mental disorder হয়, hysterical patient. So affected by or deriving from widely uncontrolled emotion. And what is then called hysteria? So hysterical is the adjective, hysteria is the noun. So exaggerated or uncontrolled emotion or excitement. And abeyance, a state of temporary disuse or suspension. And why it is called topographical theory, the dividing mind into three layers. Perhaps I am using the word perhaps because topographical means relating to the arrangement or accurate representation of the physical features of an area, representation of the physical features of an area. So mind, if we consider as the physical feature, so it is a accurate representation of the physical features of an area. So the mind is being divided into three layers: conscious, the pre-conscious, and the unconscious. So so let us one, there are another part remaining. Let me conclude this. So another theory associated with Freud's unconscious is called his structural theory. This is topographical theory, dividing mind into three layers: the conscious, pre-conscious, and the unconscious. Another theory associated with his concept of unconscious is called structural theory of personality. Structural theory of personality developed by Freud. What it is, I have discussed already, but so let me discuss again. So subsequently, Freud developed his structural theory of personality, which conceived of the mental apparatus as made up of three components. There are fundamental difference. One is the layer of mind. By topographical theory, Freud divides the mind into three layers: conscious, pre-conscious, and unconscious. By structural theory, he says that our mental apparatus or our inner psyche, so our mental apparatus is made up of three components. So that was the topographical theory is related to three layers of mind. Topographical theory. Structural theory is related to mental apparatus, and that mental apparatus is made up of three components. What are those three components? First one is id. It is called id, id. I shall be sharing link on this structural theory also. First one is the id, consisting of the primitive instinctual energies. You can call they are a small part of our vital part. So id, consisting of the primitive instinctual energies. Then the second component, first, so mental apparatus is made up of id, first component. It is made up of three components. First component is id. And what is id? Consisting of the primitive instinctual energies. Amar jitu সহজাত প্ৰবৃত্তিমূলক যিবোৰ আমাৰ প্ৰবৃত্তি সেইবোৰৰ দ্বাৰা গঠিত হৈছে। দ্বিতীয় কম্পোনেণ্টক কৈছে দি ইগো। What is ego? Ego is constituted by the thinking part of the mind. And what it does? Ego exercises cognitive functions. Cognitive functions mean you can understand that all our relating to or involving conscious intellectual activities such as thinking, reasoning, remembering, etc. So the ego exercises cognitive functions such as perception, memory, problem solving, etc. So this is the second component. And what is the third component? It is called superego. And what is superego? The superego which acts as a conscience for the ego. So superego is the conscience of the ego. In respect of what? In censoring the instinctual demand of the id. Instinctual demand of the id. So structural theory is related to mental apparatus, whereas topographical theory related to layers of our mind. So in relating the concept of the earlier topographical theory to his later structural view of personality, Freud stated that whereas the id is the true unconscious. So now he is relating his structural theory with the topographical theory. That is to say, the mental apparatus is being related to the layers of mind. Layers of minds being related to conscious, unconscious, etc. So Freud stated that whereas the id is the true unconscious. So according to Freud, this id, the first component of the mental apparatus, is unconscious. Then again he says here, he says an interesting thing. He says, even it is certain, it is his words, it is certain is itself unconscious. Now he admits that much of the ego is itself unconscious. Then he says, even the superego too is largely unconscious. প্ৰথমতে কৈছিলে অকল id is unconscious. তাৰ পৰৱৰ্তী সময়ত ফ্ৰয়ডে কি কৈছে it is certain বুলি কৈছে, it is certain that much of the ego is itself unconscious and the superego too is largely unconscious. তেনেহলে thus according to Freud, all the three components of what in psychology is vaguely termed as mind or psyche. So according to Western psychology, then what is mind? Mind is nothing but id plus ego plus superego. And according to Freud, all the three components form part of the unconscious in various degrees. So all of these three components form the part of unconscious in varying degrees. But originally he stated the id is only unconscious. But later on he says that no, id is true unconscious. His wording is id is true unconscious, while he says it is certain that much of the ego is itself unconscious, much of the ego, not the whole part of the ego. And he says even the superego too is largely unconscious. So পাশ্চাত্যৰ মনস্তত্ত্বই যিটো vaguely কৈছে what in psychology is vaguely termed mind or psyche. These three components are vaguely termed as mind or psyche, form part of the unconscious in varying degrees. আৰু এই গোটেই কথাখিনিক মই এটা মাত্ৰ কওঁ, শ্ৰী অৰবিন্দই এটা কথা কৈছে যে এই যিটো কথা ভগাইছে, আমি পিছত যেতিয়া শ্ৰী অৰবিন্দৰ কনসিয়াসনেছৰ আমি কথা পাতিম, কৈছে the whole consciousness has various ranges. Among those various ranges, subconscious is one of those various ranges. And what is this unconscious about which Freud has spoken about? According to Sri Aurobindo, it is the lower vital subconscious layer. So lower, first thing, whole consciousness, there are almost 5 ranges of consciousness. Out of these five ranges, subconscious is one of the ranges of consciousness. And there are many, subconscious has also many ranges. Among those ranges, the so-called the unconscious about which Freud has spoken about is the lower vital subconscious layer. And again he says but the lower vital subconscious, which is all that the psychoanalysis of Freud seems to know. It's not the whole ranges of consciousness. So consciousness has 5 ranges: superconscious, subliminal conscious, subconscious, inconscious, and surface consciousness. And each of these ranges has their own sublayers. So according to Sri Aurobindo, this so-called id is just the lower vital subconscious layer. And actually Aurobindo says, but the lower vital subconscious, which is all that the psychoanalysis of Freud seems to know, and even of that, it knows only a few illit corners. So India knows many more things about consciousness. So far then, the theory of consciousness or theory of unconscious of Western psychology is composed of 2 theories. One is topographical theory, which divides mind into 3 layers: the conscious layer, preconscious layer, as well as unconscious layer. And the structural theory divides mental operators into 3 components. First is id, second one is ego, and third one is superego. And later on, Freud stated that not only id is true unconscious, even the ego, according to his own language, according to him, it is certain that much of the ego is itself unconscious. Then about superego, he later stated superego too is largely unconscious. গতিকে পাশ্চাত্যই যিটো ভেগলি মন বুলি কাক জানে, এই id, ego and superego, আৰু এই তিনিটাই কৈছে they form part of the unconscious in various degrees. With this, let me allow to conclude here. If you want to interact, we can interact for few. So tomorrow we shall be taking up the view of unconscious. Tomorrow, not tomorrow, in our next session, the view of unconscious as conceived by Carl Jung. So now let me conclude here, and if you want to interact, we can interact for a few minutes. Anybody want to discuss anything? So it seems nobody is willing to interact. So I request the organizer to conclude.
Thank you, sir. It is an honor to have the opportunity to express my appreciation to all the dignitaries present. I am grateful to the esteemed delegates of the webinar for their presence and efforts in making today's session a success. I extend my sincere thanks to our honored resource person, Shri Diganta Biswa Sarma, sir, for your words of inspiration and encouragement. Your words are greatly appreciated. My gratitude also goes to the director, Dr. Sangeeta Borthakur ma'am, coordinator, Dr. Jyoti Das ma'am, joint coordinator, Dr. Pooja Chetri ma'am, and to the technical team members of the Capacity Building Center of Cotton University. Lastly, thanks to everyone who attended today's session and would like to hope for such further sessions future. Thanking you all. Good night.
Thank you and namaskar to all and good night.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you.